Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto, Willies. Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto, Willies. Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willies, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. Good morning to Northeast Texas, Southeast Texas, Northwest Louisiana, Southwest Louisiana, to every nook and cranny receiving the signals from our 100,000 watt transmitter into those magical boxes known as radios, aka the Howard Reynolds machines. Anyway, folks, we're going to have a great show for you today. Welcome aboard to our international our listeners on who receive our signals via what again? The internet, created by whom? We, the people, but profited for whom? They are the very few billionaires. We're going to change that, folks. We're going to make sure and bring it all back to where things belong. Equity for those who actually did the work. Before we go any further, let's get on to the studio with the geniuses, El Señor Howard Reynolds and Jacques Van Bibba.
And we've been still looking for those geniuses. We just got a couple of guys here. Laurel and Hardy would be more like it.
Nah.
That's another fine mess you've got me into here.
Well, I always try.
And you succeed, too. I mean, look at this. Okay, well, it's a Thursday, and we're going to be doing our first broadcast on the HD3 channel today at Main Street Crossing up in Tomball. It's a live remote. Rockin' Stu and I are going to be up there having a really good time. It's the Mo Bandy Show. Mo Bandy, a famous country singer, will be up there. We'll try to get him on for an interview. But it's going to be a lot of fun. So Main Street Theater in Tomball. That's what's going to be happening from 5 until 7:30. I would love to carry the concert live. I would, but there's a whole lot of legal things that you got to do and this, that, and the other, because somebody's afraid that they're going to make $1 off of you. So anyway, we're not going to carry the concert, but it's going to be like a pregame show. And it'll be an opportunity to meet Rockin' Stu and I on our brand new country music channel, HD3.
90.1.
90.1 HD3.
There you go.
Jack, is your microphone working? I can't. You sound like you're off mic.
Well, I was way back.
Oh, there you are. There you are. Well, get up here and tell Egberto what you got for wisdom today.
All right. Good morning, Egberto. How are you?
Buenos dias, mi amigo. Talk to me, my brother.
Man, I really liked the deal on Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders' praise of her for her plan to expand Medicare to cover home health care, vision, hearing, and hopefully dental. Parents many times sacrifice their health care to spend that money on their children's care and other needs. When they retire, they hope to maintain their dignity with teeth that work, vision that is clear, and ears that can hear. I would hate to think that some politicians would deny seniors health care for political gain.
Hey, have you seen those ads on TV now against Ted Cruz?
Yes.
No.
Oh, Egberto, have you seen those things?
Yes, I have.
Man, those are powerful. They're very powerful, and they get the message across.
Yeah. I honestly think that is why that race is close, and we can actually do it in that race. And I must say, the addition of Kinzinger and Cheney in the rural areas, I think is going to make a difference. Not a big difference, but I think it will make enough of a difference to make it, if we can get people out, get a necessary change in Texas. But you're right about that, Howard.
I'm telling you, when they said, we all know who reversed Roe versus Wade.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then no finger pointing. We all know who did it. So, and it's such a simple statement without pointing a finger at anybody. It says, yeah, we all know who did it.
But it says, ladies, this is your cue.
Ladies, you better be voting for
your best interest.
Your best interest. You better be voting for your best interest, because there's a candidate that does not have that in mind, or anybody else's best interest, just his own.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I'll say. Okay, enough rant from me. You got Neil Aquino today. Introducing Neil Aquino.
Yes, it's Thursday. It's the Houston Democracy Project at HoustonDemocracyProject.com's HoustonDemocracyProject.com. We have the founder, as we do every Thursday, not only because he's my buddy, my friend, but because of your request. We have the one and only El Señor Neil Aquino from the Houston Democracy Project. Good morning, Neil. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, studio. And Egberto and I will talk for a few minutes before we come on the air. But one thing we didn't cover when Egberto on our pre-chat, Travis Herzog, the meteorologist for Channel 13 yesterday, posted on Facebook that the weather is not being manipulated. And boy, did he get a lot of pushback. And I have to admit, I sat there at the computer and I had to shake my head.
He got pushback for that.
I mean, he got a lot of pushback. And so the pushback seemed to come to the extent that I could bear myself to read the comments. The pushback was twofold. This was also a right-wing talking point. What about cloud seeding? As if any of them know what cloud seeding is. We've heard of it. I can't tell you really what it is. So they'd say, oh, yeah. Then also, this is what you have to say to keep your job. Or this is false information coming from ABC since Channel 13. But the meteorologist Travis Herzog posted on Channel 13 that, if we had the power to direct the weather, I guess we'd be using it, right? They say we're using it, but I had to just for a moment, I just had to stare at my computer and shake my head.
I can't believe that, Neil. By the way, cloud seeding, they spray silver iodide in the clouds with the expectation that they get some crystal formation from the humidity. You have to have humidity. But by the way, and that is nothing that can be done on a massive scale to create a hurricane.
Right.
And a hurricane
or direct a hurricane, specifically, to Western North Carolina. But what's disturbing is, for example, there was a poll I saw yesterday. Do immigrants eat pets? And this was a serious poll. And so it was 55% no, 25% yes, so 80%. So 20% must have been undecided. So you had 45% of the public willing to ponder, are immigrants eating pets? So you just know in the next week you'll see a poll. Is the weather being directed or manipulated? And you see how they introduce this stuff into the politics.
Neil, Americans eat pets. I have a friend here in Kingwood. Mm-hmm. Her pet is a pig. And you know what? Right. A lot of Americans eat pork chops, ham.
Right.
Americans eat pets. I mean, I'm just being silly. But Neil, we have a lot to talk about. But before we get into our talk, I want to expand on something that Brother Jack said. So give me about 3 minutes here, and then we'll get into our stuff, folks. What Jack said is very important. Kamala Harris has been going out there and doing the television series. I mean, going on TV and podcast, radio, all these things, right? And some people gave her flack for not. When they asked her a question that said, "What would you do differently than President Biden?" What they really want is to create a friction between President Biden and Kamala Harris, because many Americans just don't believe that President Biden are doing all the things necessary for the economy. I want to point out that, first of all, that is unfair, but that's what a lot of people are feeling. A lot of people feel the inflation that has hit their grocery bills, etc. And I think those of you who have listened to our program long enough know that I put 100% of the blame of inflation on corporate greed and the mismanagement of COVID, which created the platform that corporate greed could use to raise prices. Supply chain failures caused because of what corporations did for overseeing. Supply chain failures as well has to do with not a just-in-time inventory that corporations instituted in the way they resupply all of that. And then, as Katie Porter has pointed out, most of the inflation was not caused because of price increases caused by the oil industry ripping us off, which, again, as I said, there was always a glut, but they falsely raised the prices of oil, which permeated through the entire economy. But it was also caused by just corporations within their minutes of their shareholder meetings saying, this inflation is a good thing because it gave them cover to raise prices. All of this is documented. So whereas, yes, Biden has been getting a whole lot of flack for the inflation, it's undeserved. And evidently, our news media, the mainstream news media, who fails to inform the American population of how things really work and what really has happened, has formed the opinion that Biden has created inflation, that Biden has created these issues, when the recovery that that occurred under Biden, it's not all Biden, of course, but that occurred under Biden, has superseded every recovery around the world. Our economy is the only one that's doing as well. Our inflation is the only one that has fallen as it has because of the Keynesian economic policies. I don't want to use those big things, but that Biden instituted and that worked much better than it did, in fact, under Obama, who didn't have the wherewithal to get it done. Okay? So that's a statement of fact. They want her to come out and somehow criticize it. And honorably, she hasn't, and she has taken a whole lot of flack. Donald Trump has called her stupid for not trying to create a difference between her and President Biden. I think I call her honorable for not falling for the things. Now, here is what she has done that Biden has not done. She has said, I will, now that we've cleaned up this economy, that we've gotten the prices down, not the prices down, inflation down, that we've gotten the interest rates to come down. Now it is time for us to continue with these values. And these values are things like, we're going to expand Medicare. And the expansion of Medicare that she is doing means that people who would have been paying $10,000 a month to care for their parents in a nursing home, this can now be brought home with home help that Medicare will cover. Things that have meaning to people's lives. That group of folks who are taking care of their parents and their own kids, what Kamala Harris is saying she wants her plan to provide is all of you that opportunity not to go bankrupt taking care of your parents, but to have assistance via Medicare. Right now, we give away a lot of money to the people who administer Medicare Advantage. The corporate people rip you off. She's saying, let's go ahead and work towards helping people. Kamala Harris should be far ahead in the polls. She comes out and she speaks about what I'm going to do for people, what I'm going to do for you. Trump, as she mentioned in the last TV interview, he doesn't give interviews, so go take a look at his speeches, his rallies. It's about him, nothing to offer you. The best he's been said is, I have a concept of a plan to help you. Americans, it is time for us to be thinking about our own interests, and Neil is going to talk about some of this later on in our discussion, but it's time for us to think about it. It's time to think about you. But Neil, I needed to get that out today because it's a hot topic, but I want you to go ahead, my dear brother, and talk to us about the issues that you want to present today.
at Houston Democracy Project blog at HoustonDemocracyProject.com, and every day I have Houston Democracy Project notes and observations, and I'm spending a good amount of time with these posts each day, and HoustonDemocracyProject.com. And so I want to bring up yesterday's post, where I had 3 points that I'll seek to cover each succinctly. The online political magazine Politico ran an article recently about the decision of the International Firefighters Union to make no endorsement in the presidential race. Apparently they were gonna. It was a close call, and they didn't. Here's a quote from the article. But the union president internationally, Ed Kelly, under intense pressure by key local chapters, New York, Boston, Philadelphia. Here we go. And some officials in Los Angeles and Houston to withhold endorsing Harris, with some threatening to pull out of the larger union if he did. So I just want you to think about that. Our Houston Firefighters Union, who has all that money that Controller Chris Holland says has been putting our financial status in jeopardy, and as a city, our credit and bond ratings, that the Houston Firefighters Union, in the most diverse city in America, a Democratic voting city, and they helped lobby the national union to not endorse in between an authoritarian who is using language like, and you're hearing this language lately, Trump is using that crime is in the genes of these immigrants. So we're seeing this Nazi-like language. So when the mass deportations are taking place, or women are dying from untreated pregnancy complications, just remember to think that our local Houston Professional Firefighters Association, stayed neutral in that race. Took your tax money and stayed neutral in that race.
Neil, I want to expand on this. Our mayor, a Democratic mayor, one that gets a lot of support from unions, just gave these firefighters their biggest raise and back pay, I think, if I recall correctly, ever. And likewise, we also have a candidate who specifically says, I hate overtime, and to go fire people who are trying to work for their needs. These are things that our firefighters, they get the overtime that they need and want. They get the pay increases that they've wanted. Why is it, or what must be done to highlight that the public who has supported these firefighters, that they don't support the working class by supporting the candidate who is working towards the working class? Why should we find a way to penalize that union?
And they in all their that the firefighters and Mayor Turner were in this kind of Moby Dick white whale situation where they chased each other around for years, not really caring the damage that they did. Neither Turner nor the firefighters, for that endless dispute. But when the firefighters issue came up on the ballot, forcing Mayor Turner, and then he held it up in court, the public sided with the firefighters. The Houston public sided with the firefighters.
I voted for it. I voted to support the firefighters.
Right.
I wanted the firefighters to get a justified raise. Now I feel like the firefighters are stabbing us in the back.
And just exactly what you said, and this is in my blog, that part of Project 2025 is a tax on unions. And now the police union, it ain't a union, but the police contract is coming up. And so we have these two public safety unions that seem to have a conception of public safety that doesn't involve democracy. They are supporting authoritarian candidates, the national FOP. I don't want to go off, but I'm just saying these public safety, quote unquote, unions here in Houston are seemingly fine. And we can say, hey, what do you expect of the police union? But that doesn't mean that the police union couldn't say, we don't support a felon. We don't support someone who insurrection on January 6th. They have that option. And just because we don't expect it doesn't mean we shouldn't say it. So that's point one this morning. Point two, and this is a little quicker. The Houston Chronicle endorsed State Senator Betancourt yesterday, and he's a Harris County. He used to be our tax assessor. He's been around. The only point I have about that, it isn't that he's a Republican that they shouldn't endorse him. There are two political parties for 340 million people. There's not going to be, if we wanted one political party, we could move to a authoritarian dictatorship. Unfortunately, the dictatorship seems to be moving over here. But Senator Betancourt has been an aggressive advocate of policies leading to mass deportations and intervening in our elections. And endorsing Senator Betancourt normalizes this brutality and these attacks on democracy. And I know that the Chronicle should not be normalizing this guy or anyone who won't come out and say, I will accept election results. And again, listen to the rhetoric from Trump. Listen to the rhetoric, which is increasingly just pure racial hate, reminiscent of the worst racial regimes. Lastly, you might see this morning that Mayor Whitmire got $50 million from the state of Texas to help pay for damage from our two storms this year. There had been 4 council members, and I want to mention them because they've been out front, and they didn't have to be. Sally Alcorn, Joaquin Martinez, Mario Castillo, and Leticia Plummer have been advocating for a tax increase only to pay for the money lost in our budget from the 2 storms. That's all they wanted to do. They, in fact, would be open to more, and we need more because we have the revenue cap and we have limits from the state on what we can do. But they held a town hall meeting, virtual town hall meeting that had about 60 participants on Sunday, which was a good format. So Mayor Whitmire got this $50 million, which he trumpeted like he had cured cancer or developed a warp engine or something. He was all over himself at city council session yesterday. It's important to remember that this money from the state is not a gift or favor. Houston and Harris County are an economic engine of Texas. Mm-hmm. And they're not doing us any favors, giving us the money that we gave them, giving us just money back.
A part. Let's be clear. Let's be clear. Giving us a part of our money back.
A small part. And again, so striking the same theme as the other 2 matters discussed. State of Texas leadership supports the Trump, Vance, Musk ticket that's coming, the Putin, Peter Thiel, Musk, Vance ticket that's coming for us. And if Trump's elected, if he steals the election, he'll be yesterday's news. He'll be there watching TV, ordering McDonald's. And Vance and Musk are even worse than Trump. But the state can direct 50 million or 500 million or whatever here, and that bottom line direction issue will be here. And then also has Sally Alcorn. Sally Alcorn is a very moderate Democrat. I've been critical of her in the past, not because she's a moderate Democrat, because I wanted her to be more active in opposing the Republicans, given the details we've already talked about today. But she knows the budget. She's the finance chair. She does know the budget up and down. And she made the point that the 50 million one-time gift is great gift, money back, but that isn't the solution. And so support Alcorn, Castillo, Plummer, and Martinez for doing it. They are doing the courageous thing. And the city does need more revenue, and we cannot operate on just Dan Patrick and Greg Abbott giving us back our own money. In fact, last thing I'll say, they wanted 90 million from their tax increase. The budget hole, they kept saying, I believe, was 88 million. The budget hole
is larger for the Houston budget.
Well, the budget hole caused by the 2 storms.
Oh, but they're caused by the storm. Okay.
They just wanted the money. And if you listen, Whitmire says reasonable things. There is a budget hole. There is consolidation that can be done with the county. There are things that Whitmire is saying we should work better from the state, but the state also is our abuser. The state is taking our rights. The state is preempting our ordinance. The state is seeking to overturn our elections. The state is endlessly hassling our judges. And so, we'll take the 50 million, but those bottom line issues remain with the state. And if Whitmire can get better cooperation with the county, he seems to want to do it without talking to Judge Lena or Rodney Ellis. He only seems to want to work with 3 of them. So I'm not sure how that works. That's fine. But bottom line, this was our money. And we should also praise elected officials who are putting themselves out there when they don't have to.
Well, 2 things. Chris Hollins came out and said, $50 million, that's a joke, because we're down, I think, $280 million is the budget hole that the Houston budget has right now. So, now I'm glad that Alcorn and them came out with wanting to raise these taxes. But as Hollins points out, there are structural issues with the budget right now that needs to get solved. Of course, the firefighters.
And Alcorn says that. Alcorn's very clear about it. Yeah.
Now, the firefighters got a deal. And look, I am for paying these guys what they're worth. Absolutely. These guys who work that they're heroes. But they also since they're asking those of us of the political ilk to support them to get what they need, they also need to do their job in making sure that all workers are supported like they were. Now, with the budget again, I think it is time that we go ahead and say, look, I don't want these guys taking that $280 million and say we need to cut park services and cut all these things. They need to cut some services out of the police force for sure. I mean,
right.
But we need to also raise the funds to make sure we have the city that we deserve.
Now, let me say this, the unions. I've been thinking about I remember at Labor Day, the local Axios newsletter, talked about the state of labor. It said 3.5% of local labor is represented of local workers the region is represented by labor. I'm a strong supporter of labor unions, but I can tell you when I see these polls that I'm seeing repeatedly, 35-40% of labor union members support Trump. So 40% of union members supporting a fascist. And the unions have done a really poor job of educating their membership on what's going on here. And I'm a strong supporter of unions. But as we think about after this election, no matter what happens, as we think about our coalitions and how we're doing things, we need to evaluate in some respects the role of labor. You've got to be able to bring some voters to the table. And labor in many ways is not doing that. And the firefighters, the police are not an AFL-CIO union. The firefighters are. So those and the local leadership of the Gulf Coast AFL-CIO Labor Federation has been all on board with the firefighters. Facing a fascist threat in Texas and the nation, they expended so much capital, political and money to elect Whitmire and over Sheila Jackson Lee and to support those firefighters with apparently, I don't know what conversations happen, but no obligation, no reciprocal obligation from the firefighters. And these are political operations. They'll put their hand over their heart and say, we're first responder. Fireman helps you. You should thank them. You should thank them. And they do.
I think you hit on something that we need to.
But they're a political. Yeah. At core, first, the police and the firefighter quote union are political organizations, and you don't need to romanticize them at all.
And we also need to look at the longshoremen as well with some of the issues we've had with them. So I mean, we have to look about restructuring the union movement to make sure they're aligned correctly. And if they're not aligned correctly, we need to jettison them. I'm talking police union. I'm talking firefighters union. I'm talking these guys that are not working in the interest of the working class. In other words, you can't be selfish and say I support, and I'm coming to you, Johnny. And by the way, I want to welcome Eric Hayes, our stalwart. John Cotter is in the house from the Humble president of the Humble Democratic Party and one of the leaders of the CIA here in Houston, the Clubs in Action in Houston. We also have Billy Allison Irwin, welcome to Politics Done Right on the chat. We have a great conversation going on in the chat. I tell you what, let's hold off on our little talk here and let's bring Brother Johnny into the conversation. And let's also remember, folks, you can give us a call at 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. If you have anything specific you want to ask Neil Aquino from the Houston Democracy Project, feel free to give us a call. But let's talk to El Hermano Johnny. Come on in, Johnny. What's up, my brother?
Good morning, my brother. So, when you describe how we've been stabbed in the back by the firefighters, we give them what they want and what they need and deserve, but then they can't reciprocate. My mind goes back 3 generations to when there was this right-wing extremist senator, McCarthy, who fabricated a whole fiction in which he was able to terrorize a whole nation of people, specifically people in the entertainment industry. He destroyed careers. He got them to admit to things that weren't true. And unlike what we have right now, we have Democrats who are unwilling or unable to find someone like that to be their stalwart, to put the fear of God into a lot of these Republicans in politics, as well as those who lean politically to the right, who serve in law enforcement and fire service, to where we find ourselves, we can't pull off the same things that the other side of the aisle does, and that is tragic. And that leads me to my next thing. At the music break at the bottom of the hour of the previous program, during Arnie Arnison's Attitude program, they chose a piece of music where they talk about putting a woman in charge or putting women in charge. Mm-hmm. And my mind went to that image of Kamala Harris following Liz Cheney into a dark room. And I thought, under different circumstances, I wouldn't mind being grabbed by the hand by her and led into a dark room. But we're post January 6th now. And so Kamala Harris, following Liz Cheney's daughter, whose spots have not changed, within a short while, before you know it, guess what? We're going to find out that Liz Cheney had her way with Kamala Harris, and Lady Liberty on Liberty Island in New York is going to have a baby bump, and that baby will not be aborted. Michael Corleone's wife cannot had the ability to get an abortion, but Lady Liberty won't, because there is no Roe v. Wade to protect her, and that baby's going to be a demon. It's going to be a demon seed.
Let me push back a little bit if I'm understanding you correctly. I think you are concerned about, let's say, the Liz Cheney Kamala Harris alliance. I am not. Let me tell you. This alliance between neoliberalism has been there forever. And what Donald Trump is doing is transactional. I'm going to talk a little bit in this kind of a language. What Donald Trump is doing is transactionalizing neoliberalism. Okay? Neoliberalism between the Democrats and the Republicans have been something that we've spoken about, Brother Johnny, a long time ago. I talk about the left rail and the right rail. Think about this. I want you to think about this for me for just a second. America is a train track, right? The direction that America goes, we have the trains running. If you have a left rail and a right rail, you have the same track pair. You know what's interesting about that train track? They're both going in the same direction. That has been the success of neoliberalism. The left track tries to pull a little bit to the left, the right track to the right, and they all, however, go in the same direction. What we have always needed is a derailment so that we can move the tracks itself. Because, and that's, I've always been going for the derailment. But you can't have a derailment if you have a permanent embrace. And that permanent embrace would have been Trump. I can deal with the fighting between the the right and the left and get in our way by bending the tracks. What I can't do is deal where I don't have the torches to bend that track, right? And that's what Trump is about to disrupt. And Cheney, and this is why I love Liz Cheney, and I speak well of Liz Cheney. I disagree with Liz Cheney 100% on policy, but I agree with Liz Cheney 100% on saving our democracy. And that is, we can fight neoliberalism. We can't fight fascism. Go ahead, Brother Johnny. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me see if Neil wants to comment on that first.
It's great that we have these two women leaders, and I don't know that they suggest themselves to any metaphor just beyond straight up two women leaders who are moving this forward, and I'm glad to see it.
Yeah, go ahead, Johnny. Come on back in.
Okay, so to use your analogy of the Amtrak, we all know that Amtrak used to be more public than it is now. Now it's public-private.
Yes.
And it's because of that, most public-private endeavors, when Republicans are behind it, things go south. And we have seen lots of train derailments, literally trains derailing, Amtrak trains, with people dying.
Yes.
And until we put that out of the hands of privatization, we take it back and put it into public sphere, we will continue to have these tragedies occur. And now, going back to Liz Cheney, let's not forget, let's remind ourselves that she's a predator. She's a predator, and when Kamala Harris goes on national TV and gleefully looks up at the sky and says, "Oh, I wouldn't mind putting a," and she said it a few days ago to Women on the View. She was saying, "Oh, she don't have a problem with putting a Republican in her administration, in her cabinet." Now, who is she going to pick from? Which Republican do you think, Egberto, would she pick from? Would it be Liz Cheney? It could be.
I don't know if Liz Cheney. Let me tell you, Johnny. I don't know if Liz Cheney would take that job. Liz Cheney has one purpose. She may take an ambassadorship or something, but Liz Cheney has one purpose: to get rid of Donald Trump. Liz Cheney is not Kamala Harris's friend. If you take, I'm talking. They could be. Look, I have Republican friends that I actually like. I have Republican friends. My sister is a Republican. I have Republican folks that that I enjoy. Okay, policy, we have nothing in common, right? I separate the humanity from the policy. Not every Republican is that evil person that wants to do these things, etc., etc. In fact, they're not. But I'm a pinko left-wing liberal. That's who I am, right? But I also realize that I'm not the only person in the country, right? And not everybody thinks like me. I try to do what you do, Johnny. I'm trying to convince people that my way, not my way, our way, Neil Aquino's way, your way, that it brings more. Did we lose Johnny? Call back, Johnny, if we accidentally lose you. Brings more prosperity, right? But anyway, let's do this. Let's go to the next caller on line 2, and then we'll go back to we'll bring Johnny back in. But bring line 2 back in, and then we'll go back to Johnny. Line 2, you are on. Okay, whoever line 2 is will come on. Anyway, Neil. So I understand exactly what John is talking about.
We got to back up on the phone here, so
no problem.
We'll be with you in just a moment.
No problem at all, my brother. Look, I understand where John is coming from. We progressives specifically, I'm not even talking about neoliberal Democrats. I'm talking about progressives in the aggregate have been damaged by our system, both by neoliberal Democrats and Republicans alike. And I think it is important. So what the fears that Johnny speaks about, and I'm going to bring Johnny back on next, because I think they're fixing the lines right now. But the fears that Johnny has, that's real. Okay. In other words, now that we have all these Republicans like Liz Cheney and others jumping on board with Kamala Harris, etc., the fear is to win this election. Is Kamala Harris going to have to sell out on her values and her policies? Well, You know what it tells me? You remember when Kamala Harris went out and said, I will, I have changed, I haven't changed my values. And a lot of people laughed when she said that, right? When they said, well, you're not going against fracking anymore. You're not going against and you're not supporting Medicare for all anymore. And then her answer was, I am not going against my values. And people laugh. And in my mind, I'm saying, lady, that's the smartest answer, because that's a real answer. You and I believe in Medicare for all, Neil.
Right.
But we also went ahead and supported Obamacare. And why did we do that? Tell me why we did that, Neil.
Well, we did it in part because we wanted the pre-existing condition protections. That was my main thing, and we understood the significance of it, and we also saw the flaws of it.
Exactly, and we understood that we had not yet built the grassroots. The grassroots already supports Medicare for all. If you ask people what kind of health care they want, they will tell you they want everything that we are offering with Medicare for all. But when it comes to voting, right, they don't vote for the candidates because they don't quite understand when these candidates come out and say Medicare for all will raise your taxes, right? And people say, oh my God, my taxes are going to go up. And they don't realize that paying that private insurance is more than the taxes. Go ahead, Neil.
I'll tell you also say, something that's always been at the center of my politics and for the Democratic Party, we have run cities, Democratic parties run cities and urban counties forever in low turnout, unopposed, gerrymandered races. And I really believe, as we look at the struggles in Detroit or Milwaukee or Philadelphia that are essential to winning the presidential race, we have gutted our own urban support, and I think a perfect example of this is Sylvester Turner, who has won low turnout election after low turnout election, comes in at age 72 or whatever. I'm glad he's in better health. I haven't seen him actively campaigning in CD 18. He's going to win the race, congressional, but over
by
and
name recognition.
It's name recognition, and so I'm mentioning him because he's there, not because he's the only one. But the Democratic Party has taken urban. We have hollowed out a lot of our own base by. It's barely democratic when you win 10 elections a row in a gerrymandered seat when you have a campaign war chest to scare off a primary challenger, and we are reaping what we've sowed in cities across the country. And you're seeing a lot of polls showing New York State, Harris is going to carry New York State, but you're seeing significant polling trending towards Trump in New York and in New York City because they've been more concerned, which Eric Adams is a perfect example. We've hollowed out our own base with low turnout, and you see that in Harris County very much so.
And, Eric Adams, first of all, Eric Adams needs to go. Eric Adams was never a friend of the progressive movement. Eric Adams, many a times his alliances were alliances with people that we would definitely object to. So, the truth of the matter is Eric Adams needs to go. And yes, he's going to be a drag in New York. And that, look, it is shameful that some of these politicians in New York aren't winning their districts easily. If Johnny can come on now, let's go ahead and get Johnny, my brother. If we have our phone situations fixed, Johnny, I think you're on now, Johnny.
I believe I'm on too. I heard the sound. So just quickly to respond to that last thing you said about your sister, I would remind you that I have a cousin who's a thoracic surgeon, but she is a Trump supporter on steroids. And I'm pragmatic. I understand she has a right to have a living and she's got a medical license and she gets to operate on people. But guess what? She's not going to operate on me. Because I also know that human nature is human nature, and is she so rabid with me, telling me that health care is a privilege and not a human right? Guess what? If I get hurt, and she was as vociferous towards me and nasty towards me. How do I know she's going to be at her best when she is taking care of me and I'm on her operating table?
I am.
No.
So, Johnny, I'm with you. Johnny, before you finish, Johnny, I'm with you. Okay. Now, the relationship between my sister and me and your cousin, I think, is different. My sister, I know for a fact how much my sister genuinely loves me, right? And the way she comes and she works with us, etc. And she does have, there's this fight in the head of people, right? With what she believes from her church and all that kind of stuff and otherwise. And that's where my empathy and my understanding come. But you are correct in your feelings. If you have a rabid relationship with a family member, it's no different than a rabid relationship with somebody else. So it all depends, right? Now, when it comes to, and I don't know if you heard when I was actually defending you with brother Neil Aquino here, where I said I can understand your hesitancy with having all these Republicans that are supporting Kamala Harris, because you're saying we progressive have been sold out so many times by our own neoliberal Democrats. Is this something that would happen again? And then I go back to your own words again, Johnny, and that is, our work has only begun after the election is over, and we're not going to make it be the way we dealt with Obama. We are going to go out there, activists are, and make sure to fight for what we've earned and deserve. Continue, Johnny, and then I have to go to Jacob.
Okay, my final retort to that is we need to work smart, not hard. So what does that mean? That means that Kamala Harris, while she can accept their endorsements, she doesn't have to then play with them in the sandbox, because that's a big problem for me. I wouldn't be so hesitant if she already announced prior to that revelation about putting a Republican in her administration, if she had already announced that she would put 3 or 4 unapologetic progressives in her cabinet. But she has yet to do that. So
no, I don't want her to do it. I don't want her to do that. Let me tell you, I don't want her. You and I are pragmatic. I do not want her to do that. I don't think she has to do that.
Good.
Because when she has support from AOC, Bernie Sanders, and all these other people, I think we can actually, they've already laid down the permission structure. But Johnny, let's talk tomorrow, because we had some telephone problems, and we'll talk tomorrow. All right, brother?
Okay, let's get a plane ticket for Lady Liberty to where she can go get help if she needs it.
You got it, brother. You got it. All right, let's go to Jacob. Come on in, Jacob.
Yes. Hey, man, and bless. Hey, Roberto. Now, see, with Adams, that's my brother. Now, you against him, he haven't been proven guilty of anything. That's my brother. You know what I'm saying? He's from over here. Mm-hmm. And he ain't been proven guilty of anything, and you prosecuting him, all right, already. And the reason why New York is turning towards Trump, but man, you got your guess, it's because of immigration, because of the overwhelming immigration problem that they have in New York, that Biden and them brought to this country, that's just messing up their economy. They can't afford these people. Who's going to pay? They cannot afford it. And that's why they're turning towards Trump. You know?
Okay, so, let me back up. Let me back up a second, Jacob. Jacob, with all due respect, love you, brother, but on this one, you're simply wrong in this respect, sir. Let's go under the Trump plan, and let's go ahead and start a mass deportation. Here is a truth that people don't like to accept. The undocumented economy is a strong economy that, believe it or not, even though it shouldn't be that way, it has made your life more affordable. You may not like to hear that, but the truth of the matter is that's a statement of fact. Secondly, if you go ahead and do what Trump wants to do, the people that says, oh, they're costing us, I can show you with math that they're not. Okay? I can show you with math that these are people that are fortifying Social Security. I can show you with math that these are people that are, again, and that's my problem with Democrats right now. They haven't found a narrative to explain to people like you All right. And I'm not saying that pejoratively. I'm saying that because you are my brother. I have to find, and I am explaining it to you. I wish more would. I'm telling you, and you and I would sit down and have a cup of coffee with you and others who think like you, where we will sit down with a cup of coffee and go through the numbers that we can actually talk about this, Jacob.
Let me say,
Neil wants to say something. Come on in, Neil.
Let me say, I think some of the problems in New York are based on people's perceptions of immigration issues, and I want people to grasp the mass deportations. Trump and Vance keep radically overstating the number of undocumented people in the United States. They keep radically overstating the number of undocumented people in the United States. Trump has talked about revoking the legal status of the Haitians in Springfield, Ohio. They are talking about deporting people whom are legally here, and they have overstated. I keep seeing that in reality, there are 11 to 12 million undocumented people in the United States. That's what I hear or read. They keep saying 20 million. And if you think you're immune because you're a citizen, because you're here legally, or even if you're back here 5 generations, they will use this to, and this is real stuff, they will use this to create a police state where you're pulled over, you've been here for 5 generations, you're black, you have an accent, you're brown, you're Asian, and they will start asking you questions. And the Republican sheriff nominee in Harris County, Mike Knox, is talking actively about using his office, if he wins, hopefully he won't, to do immigration stuff. This stuff is real, and they will come after people who are here.
You're absolutely right about that. And the color of your skin, your accent and all of that will make a difference, and you will become target of the police who are trying to supply the private sector, who is going to be processing these people to deport.
Yes.
The private sector is going to need feed material. And how do you get feed material quickly? You look at people of color, you make sure, see if they have an accent or whatever, and I will qualify because I still have an accent, right? Hey, look, the phones are filled up again, so I got to go, Jacob. Jacob, talk to me tomorrow. Real quick. Go ahead, real quick. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, let's go to Brian. Brian, you got 1 minute.
Yeah, Jacob is correct. They're telling him, resign and we won't prosecute you. Now, that is, here's some one-sided press. President Trump says, I'm not going to tax wages on tips. And the press will say, oh, well, you're going to cost us $157 billion. Kamala Harris says it, and that's the best thing that could ever happen to people that really need it the most.
There you go. That's not a true statement. Why do you come on here and lie like that? Because I'm not you lying, but the information you're getting is a lie. I can't handle that right now. That's your minute. Let's go to Bard. Come on in, Bard.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Thank you, Jacob, for what you're saying. It's true. I agree with you. We need to go to lunch and talk more about this. They're going after Adams because he wouldn't play ball on the illegal immigrants. That's the main reason. That's
another. He's a thief. That's why.
This guy is Adams is martyrizing himself, and this guy was a Democratic star 2 or 3 years ago, and just like Andrew Cuomo, they go after him because he's doing stuff, and it's interesting that they all flip over into Trump land.
And it's what's also funny is here are Democrats going against Democrats for being crooks, and somehow now the Justice Department is doing something. Well, they went against Trump because he's a crook. They went against Adam because he's a crook. Let's bring Patrick into the discussion. Thank you, Bard. We'll talk tomorrow. I'm running out of time. Let's go, Patrick. Hey. Come on in, my brother.
Hey, good morning. New York's overrun because there were a few cities that are stepping up and doing what we're obligated to do by international law and accept these people. If everybody was doing what they're supposed to, then they wouldn't be going through this.
Go ahead, Patrick.
I just wanted to kind of put that out there.
Okay, Patrick, I want to say that I want to say you've made the most important statement that nobody makes on TV. That is, we are following international law. These people come over here. If they say they are coming over here for asylum, it is our responsibility to pass them through our system to validate that asylum call. Right? That's the law. That's international law. Thank you for that very smart, sensible comment, my brother.
That's it. You got a couple more people on the phone. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Patrick. All right, Neil, you were about to say something.
No, I wasn't.
Okay. All right. Anyway, we are close to the end of the program right now. I got to throw it to the studio. El Studio, talk to me.
Well, the good news is the streamer is working again. So I just checked it and we're sending stuff out. And the other news is it wasn't working earlier, but now it's working today. So we got that fixed. Tin cans and string, man. Jack, what you got?
Lady voters, please help us vote these Grinches and crazy people out.
Amen. Vote them out. That's it. Take it home.
Let's pass it to Brother Neil. Neil, give me a closer.
Right. HoustonDemocracyProject.com, HoustonDemocracyProject.com. There's so much on the line, and do what you can, and also hold our elected officials accountable, our Democrats accountable to get out this vote.
Look, thank you very much, Neil, for being here on Saturday. Your voice is invaluable. I want to thank our brothers and sisters on the chat. That is Eric Hayes, Jay, Billy Allison, Irwin, John Cotter, Shakula Hairstylist, Mark O'Connor. I'll read your notes a bit later. If I missed anybody, I'm scrolling down. Thank you guys for all being here. Anyway, folks, look. The rest of the program is at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. I got to get out of here, but beforehand, I want to tell you this, folks. Vote and vote your interest. Again, I repeat, vote and vote your interest. Don't fall for all the crap. Listen to Politics Done Right. We bring people of all stripes here. And the one thing we do is we make sure to tell you the truth. All of what we talk about here is verifiable. We are listed as highly factual by independent organizations. So my name is Egberto Willies. Love you all. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It. As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto Willies.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will